There's a saying in the West, the truth will set you free. But in the Empire, the same truth can get you buried. Lately, I've found myself defending something unpopular in Western Christian circles, my affection for China. Not just the people or the culture, but the system of governance itself. Not blind praise, not propaganda, but a deep spiritual recognition that something wise, ancient, and unfamiliar to Western frameworks is moving with quiet strength on the other side of the world. In the dystopian resistance story I recently finished writing, Good Hello, one of the characters says, "The West buries its prophets. The East protects its gardeners." It didn't come from a news article or a think tank. It came from something deeper, a recognition cultivated over years that Western narratives have not just shaped how we see the world, but who we're allowed to trust, admire, or fear. And China? It was cast as the villain long before most of us knew where the story began. America doesn't fear China because of what China has done. It fears China because of what China might prove possible. Lifting 800 million people out of poverty in one generation. Planning in centuries, not news cycles. Building social systems that center harmony over individualism. Cultivating scientists, engineers, and planners, not campaign-financed politicians. China doesn't need to invade anyone. It's not in their history, not in their interest, not in their Tao. But to the West, that very absence of aggression is threatening because it reveals something that this empire can't bear to see. It's possible to rise without domination. Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, no prophet is accepted in the prophet's hometown." Luke chapter 4, verse 24. That rings true in every Western era. Jesus, executed by empire. Martin Luther King Jr., murdered for calling for economic justice. Oscar Romero, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, all silenced. The West consumes prophets. It buries them, co-opts their messages, and sells their image back to us as decoration. But in the East, especially in China, what is revered is not the firebrand or the lone hero, but the gardener, the patient steward, the harmonizer of systems, the one who prunes and plans, unseen but enduring. As the Tao Te Ching says, the master does not seek greatness. She lets it come to her. She lives in harmony with the Tao, and the Tao flows through her. Tao Te Ching, chapter 22. China is not just a nation. It's a civilization state, 5,000 years in the making. Its governance isn't static, but cultivated like a bonsai tree, pruned of chaos, rooted in ancient memory, trained to bend without breaking. Confucianism, Taoism, legalism, and yes, Moism all fed this evolution. These weren't just philosophies. They were governance models, ethics codes, and spiritual disciplines. While the U.S. was writing its constitution, China was adjusting a 2,000-year experiment. The West frames freedom as self-expression. China frames it as social equilibrium. So what do other faiths say? For Islam, he who does not thank people does not thank God. Hadith of the Prophet Muhammad. China centers gratitude through ancestor reverence and national memory. From Buddhism, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Gautama Buddha. China governs mindfully, training discipline not as submission, but as spiritual resilience. from Judaism. Seek the peace of the city, for in its peace you will find your peace. Jeremiah 29, verse 7. This is foundational to the social contract that China holds between state and citizen. And from indigenous wisdom, the land is our teacher. China's spiritual governance traditions, especially Taoism, mirror this deeply. The land teaches. The land is to be harmonized with. The ruler is the gardener-in-chief, not the tyrant. So why the fear? Because if the West allowed itself to see China clearly without the veil of propaganda, we'd question capitalist democracy as the only viable system. We'd have to reckon with our own disintegrating infrastructure. We'd wonder whether freedom without responsibility is truly free. But more deeply, we'd begin to admire a people the empire taught us to fear. Our empire taught us to fear. And that admiration would plant seeds of unrest in the soil of this empire. So, living as a designated decoy. A friend told me recently that a character I wrote, Anna, a spiritual warrior exiled for telling the truth, reminded her of me. I deflected that. She insisted. And she might be right. In an empire that fears gardeners, true speakers often become the designated decoys, the visible targets so that others might be spared. That's the cost of walking with eyes open. But it's also the call of those who remember what Jesus said. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Not the warmongers, not the platformed, not the powerful, the gardeners of peace. In closing, hear this benediction. May we stop fearing the East as our enemy and start seeing it as our mirror. May we listen for the prophets buried beneath our flag and honor the gardeners who quietly rebuild what the empires destroy. May we, like the best of both Christ and Confucius, learn to speak softly, plant deeply, and resist loudly when the time is right. Have a blessed day.